They thought she was a drifter. A woman caught in the wrong airlock with expired travel credentials and a fake ID chip. She wasn't violent. She didn't resist. She sat still as they pointed plasma carbines at her head and barked protocols she didn't care about. She gave them her name, only a first name, and nothing else. Her accent didn't match any colony, and her retinal scan returned a blank screen. The Empire's first mistake was assuming that meant she wasn't important. The second mistake was taking her into custody anyway. She watched them drag her through a corridor lined with shimmering banners and engraved laws none of them had read in centuries. They talked about her like she wasn't listening. One of them joked she'd probably fold in a few hours of standard interrogation. Another suggested selling her to a black site off Serenus 4. She didn't blink. She didn't react. That bothered them. Inside the holding cell, they tried basic interrogation technique. She stared straight ahead. They brought in a telepath. He left within minutes, vomiting in the hallway, mumbling about static and black oceans. They blamed the telepath. They brought in pain probes. She endured it silently. One of the guards tried to show off by shocking her spine at full power. She coughed. That was all. They tried louder methods after that. They didn't know what she was. Not yet. The outpost commander filed a Level 3 threat notice to Central Command. It was ignored. The planet was considered a safe zone, far from any disputed territory. The Empire's oversight systems flagged the event but deprioritized it. No formal report followed. That was mistake number 3. The woman sat in silence for 63 hours before she spoke again. The audio logs picked up her voice once. 2 words. He's coming. No one understood what she meant. They assumed it was a bluff. She returned to silence, and the incident was scrubbed. But the monitoring AI didn't scrub it. An analyst on a quiet moon listened to the audio spike during a random system sweep. She froze. The cadence, vocal pressure, and linguistic residue didn't match any known database. But the structure was unmistakably human military. Not civilian. Not colonial. It matched something buried inside restricted Earth war files, classified decades ago under Section Black. The analyst flagged the record and tried to forward it. Her console shut off. She hasn't been seen since. On day 5, the woman snapped her restraints. No alarms triggered. No force shields activated. She folded the steel links like paper and placed them neatly on the floor. The guards panicked and sealed the cell. She waited. When they opened the door with a squad of riot drones, she was standing at attention. They demanded to know how she'd broken the restraints. She asked for a toothbrush. By day 7, whispers had started. Soldiers at the facility began transferring out. Maintenance crews failed to arrive. Supply lines went quiet. A general sense of dread settled over the station. One guard who stared at her too long developed tremors in his dominant hand. The base medic found nothing wrong. That guard shot himself 3 days later. He left a note with one word: eyes. The Empire's local intelligence directorate sent an investigator. He was a 3-decade veteran with high-level clearance and had worked dozens of insurgent cases. He lasted 9 minutes in the interview room. Surveillance showed him walking in, sitting across from her, and leaning forward. Then nothing. He left without a word and submitted his resignation 12 hours later. His final log entry read, "She isn't alone in there." They still hadn't figured it out. An old Virek War veteran stationed nearby heard the rumors. He requested access to her file. Denied. He came anyway. Hobbled in with a cane, wrapped in ceremonial armor. He saw her through the viewing glass and went pale. He whispered a name and fell to his knees. "That's her," he said. "She's the one who made the sky burn at Velos Ridge." No one believed him. Velos Ridge was a human massacre over 100 years ago. No survivors. No records. Only a classified incident sealed by 3 empires. He disappeared the next morning. On day 10, power fluctuations became routine. Data packets began rewriting themselves. Surveillance caught images of her pacing in the cell, but every third frame vanished. Not glitched, deleted. One technician noticed patterns in the gap. A cipher. When decoded, it formed a command string used by Deep Earth Black Ops units during the Reclamation Wars. The phrase repeated 28 times, "Reclaimer active." No one at the outpost had clearance to understand what that meant. By day 11, human ships began leaving nearby ports. Civilian traffic slowed. Smugglers refused bribes to land. Something was coming. Something that made even criminals flee. One station reported a human destroyer jumping into silent orbit. No registry, no comms, no weapons hot. It just watched. Then it vanished. They upgraded her threat level. Now labeled Unknown Classified Entity. They brought in a weapons expert to consult. He took one look at her cell footage and quit. He'd seen movement like that before, on the security feeds of the Tralsk genocide site, where every guard was found with eyes melted and tongues bitten off. No evidence. No survivors. He warned them not to touch her again. They didn't listen. Day 13. They tried a neuroshock extraction to scramble her instincts. She gritted her teeth, snapped the table bolts with her bare hands, and stood up mid-pulse. The charge should have stopped her heart. It didn't. It just made her angry. She broke 2 guards' arms before they blinked. Security footage cut out for exactly 3 minutes. When it returned, she was sitting calmly, a cut on her cheek, and 23 armed personnel were unconscious around her. One was missing his helmet. No injuries were visible. None of them remembered what happened. Command finally authorized a full scan. They found it under her skin. A dormant chip, fused into her cervical spine, labeled only as RECL-001. No match in any Empire or black market registry. The chip didn't respond to any signal. It activated only when threatened. Once, it wiped the base's central AI clean in under 6 seconds. All logs from the last 3 weeks were gone. One signal burst escaped the wreckage, pointed toward Earth. Encrypted. Untraceable. The Empire scrambled to intercept it. Too late. Earth received it. They didn't respond. That silence terrified the Council more than any declaration. Somewhere on the fringes of the galaxy, an old intelligence operative pulled up a decades-old file marked red ice. Reclaimers, status. Terminated. He opened the biometric data on Subject 1 and matched it with the arrest footage. The match lit green. He called a meeting of Sector Command. They refused to believe him. He didn't argue. He simply transferred his assets off-world and sent one message to his successor. If she's awake, the war never ended. It only paused. Day 15. An alien merchant ship passing nearby picked up an automated human signal. 5 words. Echo confirmed. Kane is alive. The merchant ship's captain tried to erase the message. He killed himself instead. The name spread in whispers across Council space. Kane. They didn't know the ship had landed until it was already underground. The sensors recorded nothing. No trajectory, no burn signature, no physical breach. Just a missing chunk of solid rock from beneath the prison floor and a circular tunnel leading out into nowhere. The alarm didn't sound. The station AI had been wiped already and no backups remained. What was left of the security team stared at the footage on repeat, watching her vanish 1 frame at a time. The timestamp went dark 2 seconds before she disappeared. They locked down the sector. Fleet Command deployed orbital sentries, drone swarms, and a full blockade fleet across 3 systems. Orders were issued. No ships in, no ships out. 72 warships formed a perimeter. They deployed deep scan mines across all possible escape vectors. Every port, platform, and refueling depot lit up with identification protocols. Empire agents swept through outposts, questioned traders, arrested smugglers, and scoured backwater worlds. She was gone. Then came the second signal. It was quiet, almost beautiful. A pattern buried in standard static. 8 pulses, identical to the breathing cycle of a reclaimer combat unit during pre-engagement meditation. Only one intelligence node still recognized it. A backdoor Earth archive, long disconnected from active channels, flagged the code and forwarded it to a redacted destination. The moment it did, the node exploded. Empire tech teams traced the detonation to an overload in an auxiliary power line. What they didn't find was the second explosion, 37 seconds later, inside a black site genetics vault on Polaris Theta. 109 staff dead. No doors breached. The AI core was missing. Across the rim systems, human operatives were waking up. Old ones. The kind listed as dead decades ago. The kind trained in environments the Empire denied ever existed. They didn't need orders. The signal was enough. They walked away from quiet lives and cover identities, activated dormant caches, burned aliases, and began moving toward a single point, the outer ring world known only as Lexer 9. That's where she was headed. Lexer 9 was never officially claimed. Useless atmosphere, frozen storms, magnetic anomalies strong enough to wipe most sensors. It held no strategic value. Until now. Hidden beneath the crust were structures, old, pre-expansion era, covered in human markings. Reclaimer symbology. The Empire had tried once to investigate. 2 expeditions vanished. They'd sealed it off afterward. Now, someone had opened it again. A survey drone passing near the southern pole captured a shadow, humanoid, walking through a plasma storm. When enhanced, the image showed the same woman. Only now, she wore armor. It wasn't standard issue. The plating was dark gray, matte, and entirely smooth. No insignia. No helmet. Just her face, exposed to the storm, eyes locked onto the drone. The feed cut out seconds later. The drone was never recovered. The Empire sent a stealth frigate with full backup. It lasted 48 minutes. All hands lost. They finally admitted she was a reclaimer. But they didn't understand what that meant. Reclaimers weren't assassins or commandos. They weren't soldiers in the conventional sense. They were deterrents. Emergency deployments in extinction-level scenarios. There were once 8 of them. All were terminated after the Mars Accord. Or so they believe. She was the first. The one known as Kane. Her file was sealed under multiple override layers. Buried in Earth's last Great War archive. Even the Terran High Council wasn't sure if she was still alive. The program that created her was so classified it didn't technically exist. But she remembered everything. She remembered what the Empire did to Earth's children during the early colonial purges. She remembered the gas chambers in orbit, the sterilization protocols, the orbital strikes that erased whole continents because humans resisted taxation. She remembered what they did to her brother when he refused conscription. She remembered every scream, every flame, every Empire flag raised over a burning city. They thought it was forgotten. It wasn't. The reclaimer armor she wore wasn't just protection. It was a living system, bonded to her at a molecular level. It adapted to threats. It evolved. It carried memories of every battle it had survived, every kill. And now it was awake again. The Empire launched a containment operation. They called it Operation Final Hand. It deployed 5 black site response teams, 3 AI-guided kill fleets, and a division of psychic codebreakers trained for psychological warfare. They converged on Lexer 9 with full authorization to destroy everything on the surface. They never landed. The kill fleet arrived first. Contact lost. The ships turned on each other. One exploded inside the other's hangar bay. No one had ever seen that kind of betrayal protocol before. They believed it was a hack. They were wrong. She had been inside one of them. Not physically. But the signal they intercepted weeks ago wasn't just a call. It was a virus. A signature code that rewrote neural AI command structures. The reclaimers used it to turn enemy ships into weapons. She used it to erase a fleet. The psychic codebreakers lasted longer. They attempted a mental intrusion through orbit. They opened a bridge into her consciousness. Only one returned. His mind was blank, completely purged. All he could say was one word, repeated over and over. Remember. Command finally began to fracture. The sector admiral resigned without warning. 2 High Lords demanded Earth intervene. Earth didn't respond. The silence continued. But on the edge of Empire space, a Terran ghost ship appeared. The Blood March, long believed destroyed during the Seraphim conflict, drifted into a trade route. No crew. No lights. Its hull bore a single message, scorched into the plating with high-energy plasma. She's not yours to cage. The message was written in old Terran script. Few could read it. Those who did began deserting. The woman was no longer hiding. She was moving. From Lexer 9, seismic activity suggested subsurface tunneling. Structures beneath the surface were lighting up, transmitting in forgotten protocols. Something was powering up. A planetary defense array, but not Empire. Human. Very old. Predating the current calendar by 3 cycles. She wasn't trying to escape. She was preparing the ground. The Empire's last desperate act was to send in a planetary silencer. A black hole seed, designed to crush any rogue world into non-existence. It had only been used once. The Empire deployed it to a former rebel capital during the Conquest Wars. No trace of life remained afterward. The decision to use it was irreversible. The countdown began. The silencer arrived in orbit. 10 minutes before detonation, it vanished. Not exploded. Not intercepted. Simply gone. The tracking logs rewrote themselves. A blank spot in the data, followed by a new string of numbers. A reclaimer frequency. The Empire's highest cybernetics officer received a personal message encoded within the silence. They underestimated what Kane had become. The Doom engines never reached orbit. The first dropped from slipspace into a kill zone she'd prepared with a lattice of gravitational hooks disguised as ancient debris. The moment its shields dropped, the lattice tore it apart from within. The second vessel triggered a collapse in local spacetime. Its crew vanished from physical existence. The third engine turned back before arrival, broadcasting an ancient reclaimer signal. Unit compromised. The celestial mind attempted full psychic incursion. It constructed a scenario within Kane's mind, a false memory designed to trap her. It failed. Her neural structure wasn't organic in the way it expected. It wasn't even entirely human anymore. She fed the mind its own scenario back, twisted and sharpened. The synthetic consciousness began to experience something it wasn't programmed for: fear. When the mind attempted to retreat, Kane followed it back into the relay path, used its signal to broadcast her presence across every Empire installation connected to it. In the space of 8 minutes, 6,000 command centers were exposed to her imprint. Technicians dropped dead. Screens bled static. A single phrase displayed in Old Terran. "This is what you built." Then she cut the link. The Empire scrambled to rewrite the narrative. They declared her a rogue AI. Claimed she was a malfunctioning artifact from a failed human experiment. They deployed information filters, emergency propaganda units, sector-wide mind stabilization drones. But it was too late. Across Empire territory, stories leaked. Smugglers whispered of a woman who walked unharmed through orbital fire. Refugees described a figure who healed the blind and shattered tanks with bare hand. Mercenaries returned goldless and speechless, staring into nothing. In backroom cantinas, her name turned into a challenge. A symbol. A promise. The first humans to rally weren't soldiers. They were miners, traders, and former slaves. And then came the signal again. It wasn't broadcast this time. It lived in every unguarded machine, every forgotten circuit, every old Earth relic. Her presence spread like memory, not fire. She didn't just move through space. She moved through belief. Entire battalions of human conscripts turned their weapons on Empire commanders. Several planetary governors vanished overnight. Others defected to Kane's cause without ever meeting her. She didn't ask for their loyalty. She didn't issue speeches. She didn't build alliances. She just walked forward. And everyone who saw her remembered what the Empire tried to erase. It wasn't rebellion. It was recollection. The Galactic Senate demanded Earth intervene. Earth responded with one sentence: "She is not our citizen." No one understood what it meant. Not even the Senate. Earth hadn't disowned her. It was simply acknowledging that Cain was no longer bound to any one people. She was a living archive of what happened when you brutalized a species for centuries and called it order. She wasn't a person anymore. She was consequence. The reclaimer cells activated. Not all were stable. Some were remnants, half alive, half programmed. Others were dormant weapons systems buried on Ghost Planet. A few had become myths, guardians, monsters, or mad prophets. They all began moving toward her. Cain never called them. She never issued commands. She just lit the memory that woke them up. Empire tactical analysts predicted mutual annihilation. They believed Cain would be destroyed by her own legacy. But the Reclaimers didn't challenge her. They recognized her. Not as leader. Not as queen. As proof. Proof that survival wasn't enough. That forgetting was betrayal. The Reclaimers rallied. They didn't form armies. They dismantled supply chains, disabled NAV beacons, hijacked warship. They didn't take territory. They erased the Empire's ability to control it. One Reclaimer infiltrated a senator's palace and turned it into a gravity well. Another rewrote a planetary governor's memories and replaced them with screams. A third converted a penal asteroid into a memorial, etched with the names of every child lost in the early purges. Empire cohesion began to collapse. Not from war, but from fracture. Loyalists defected. AIs failed routine integrity checks. Discipline eroded. Troop movements stalled. Resources vanished. The machine cracked not from pressure, but from memory. One system rebelled. Then 4. Then 27. None of them communicated. None of them coordinated. They acted independently. But they all used one word. A name whispered in dread and reverence: Cain. A final summit was called. The Empire's Supreme Council gathered in a void station beyond the edge of known space. No AI was allowed. No communications permitted. A sealed session. Just them. Alone. Afraid. They debated scorched earth policies. Genocide protocols. Wormhole collapses. Even surrender. Cain arrived before they finished. No one opened the door. She was simply there, standing at the head of the obsidian table. Not armed. Not armored. Just present. She didn't speak. One by one, they began to forget. Names, ranks, histories, gone. She looked each of them in the eye and erased everything they thought gave them power. They weren't executed. They were emptied. When she left, the council remained sitting, expressionless, their minds turned to ash. The Empire still had ship, still had weapons, but no will. Cain descended to the capital world alone. No fanfare. No fleet. She walked through the gates unchallenged. Civilians watched in silence. Statues fell. Flags burned themselves. Government buildings unlocked for her. Doors slid open before she reached them. Systems surrendered. Not out of fear. Out of recognition. She walked to the central core. The place from which the Empire had controlled 10,000 systems for 400 years. It had no guards. No final resistance. It waited. She reached the throne and didn't sit. Instead, she placed her hand on the interface node. Memory poured in. Centuries of lies, genocide, conquest. All of it recorded. All of it sanitized. She didn't delete it. She restored it. Across the galaxy, Empire citizens saw the real history for the first time. The truth bled into every channel. Unedited. Unfiltered. They saw what their ancestors did. What they'd cheered for. What they allowed. And they saw her face, not as a destroyer, but as witness. That was the end of the Galactic Empire. No great war. No treaty. Just a galaxy forced to look at itself. Cain disappeared that day. Some say she became light, that she fused with the reclaimer systems now spread across space. Others say she walks still, unseen, moving through memory, waking the forgotten. But everyone agrees on one thing. The moment she arrived, the age of silence ended. Now, when new governments rise and debate the use of power, when empires dream again of dominance, someone always asks the question, but what if she remembers? No one builds prisons the same way anymore. No one tortures children in the dark. No one dares to erase history. Because now, memory has a name. And that name is Cain.